What's good, people? Welcome to another video on my channel here today. If you're new, welcome. We always talk about disruptive technology every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So grab your popcorn because we're gonna get right into it. So today, Airbnb had their first earnings report as a public company. So let's take a closer look. So in early December, Airbnb listed on the market around $139 when they first went IPO. So if you take a look here today, they're currently at $183.47 on the market with a ticker ABNB, and they're currently sitting at a market cap of over $110 billion. Now let's look at some quick facts so we're all on the same page. So the business first started in 2008, and since then, they've grown towards 5.6 million active listings on the platform in over 100,000 cities and 220 countries around the globe. Since 2008, they've seen over 800 million users that were guests on the platform and 4 million hosts willing to rent their apartments or houses out. And since then, their hosts have been able to earn over $110 billion in income with an average of $7,900 per year. So really quick, I wanted to talk about some risks involved in investing in this business, as well as some competition that hinders the profitability of Airbnb. So first things first I wanted to talk about was COVID-19 pandemic. And as you can see here, this affected the travel industry significantly. And it's one of the only industries that hasn't bounced back since then. So if we look here, in March 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic. And the governments around the world issued a lot of restrictions on travel. So this has hurt the business of Airbnb a lot because they really depend on people traveling across the globe to different cities where they want local experiences. In addition to this, here you can see that Airbnb has identified that their revenue is starting to slow down when it comes to the growth rate. So they say their ability to retain guests, their ability to retain hosts, competition, and the pandemic has caused this. So if we want to take a closer look at competition to see, how is this competition in this travel industry going to continue to affect Airbnb. So here, Airbnb identifies their competitors to be online travel agencies. So like bookings.com, they also identify Travelocity, that's a really big one, hotels.com as well, Expedia, and trip.com. So they also talk about the internet search engine. So Google has the ability to show you flights or hotels or cheap stays whenever you're traveling. And they also have here other search engines like TripAdvisor that shows you things to do when you travel, places to stay. Trivago, Craigslist is a huge one as well because people look there for information. And hotel chains is like Marriott, Hilton, and the rest. They also talk about short-term rentals, which is closer to their segment in the market. And those are competitors in China as well. So here they've identified these competitors to have more of a brand recognition, longer operating history, a bigger budget for marketing, loyalty programs, and they also have some, a lot of these companies also have partnerships, especially with travel agencies, so they include flights in some of their products. So this is a very stiff and tight competition for Airbnb. So first things first, you can see the cover letter here. It's a family, so you can tell who their customer and audience really is. So the first things we can take a look at here is the key business metrics. And if you see here, the first thing is nights and experiences booked. And in Q4 2020, there were 46.3 million nights and experiences booked. And that saw a decline of 39% year over year. And if we look at the total fiscal year of 2020, we can see here that it was a total of 193.2 million nights and experiences booked. And that also saw a decline of 41% year over year. So that number is going to be very, very important moving forward for Airbnb as they move into 2021 and 2022 because COVID-19 is still something ongoing. So it's very important how they are going to go around this, getting more nights booked on their platform. And also we can take a look here is the gross booking value. So this is the total and net amount of money that is being used to book events or nights on the platform. So this is including the service fees, the cleaning fees, and the host's cut from whatever the payment is from the guest. So this is the entire amount of money that's going through Airbnb every year. So we can see the first number is 5.9 billion in 2020 quarter four, and this was also a decline of 31%. And we can see the total number is $23.9 billion every year moving through Airbnb. And then from that figure, we can take a look at the revenue here, which in quarter four was $859 million, which saw a decline of 22% year over year. And we can see here in the total year was $3.4 billion with a decline of 30%. So Airbnb still had a loss of $3.9 billion in that quarter, 4.6 total of the year. So we can tell that this business is not yet profitable. They just went IPO, so it's kind of reasonable. Also, we just spoke about the year is very uncertain for them, and the travel business has been impacted one of the most since the pandemic. Now, I wanted to bring you a bigger picture of what's going on with the finances, so I brought you to the statements of operation here. So here we can see the revenue that we just spoke about again, sitting at $3.3 billion. And also, it looks like the cost of revenue is just around $876 million. So the interesting thing here is the cost of revenue isn't as high as I expected it to be, but the total expenses looks to be right around making them have the net loss that they're having. So the interesting thing here I've seen is the investment in the product development is where a lot of this is coming from. So this is really interesting to see because they're doubling down. It looks like they've almost doubled what they invested last year in the product to continue to expand whatever they have going on. And it seems like they've dropped a little bit when it comes to sales and marketing to focus on other aspects of the business, which is really interesting. I want to see how they kind of navigate and how the product kind of evolves from this investment in the next coming years. So that's going to be really huge to pay attention to. So moving forward, I wanted to also talk about the balance sheets here, the assets and the liabilities, what's going on. So Airbnb doesn't necessarily have any real estate or assets, which actually is changing now. They started buying real estate for their luxury kind of segment. That's a whole nother topic for another time. But let's focus here on the cash, the current assets and the liabilities. So here we see the total assets is sitting at over $10 billion. And if we take a look at the liabilities, when it comes to total liabilities, they owe not shareholders, but just owe in general, is sitting at $7.5 billion. And then the shareholders' equity is sitting at $2.9 billion. So right off the bat, I can see here that they have a pretty good asset to liability. It's not sitting at a very, very good spot, but as a very young company, they have a long way to go. And I'm excited to see how this continues to evolve. Now let's close out by talking about 2021 and the recovery that Airbnb expects from the travel industry as well as their business line. So here, starting off, they're talking about the coming travel rebound. They're talking about how we just went into the lockdown and people want to travel more. So they've been doing a lot of data gathering from their customers and a bunch of people that on the internet. So they see key insights here are, one, people miss traveling. So leisure travel is something a lot of people want to do more of, which is understandable. I, as a person that loves traveling, I can see that in myself as well. But more important information is they see that people want to travel this year specifically as well. And also, they have information about how people want to travel, not just about traveling for tourism, but now it's about traveling for connections, so with family and friends, which is really interesting. And then also, people want to continue to travel places nearby, not necessarily places of long distance, but domestically and local destinations, which is really interesting because Airbnb's value prop is bringing people local experiences. So if they're able to deliver on this, I can see their business line continue to expand moving forward. So then let's talk about the plan they've outlined here. The first plan is educating the world about what makes Airbnb hosting different. So they're talking about educating guests on better ways to travel and inspiring more people to become hosts. which is really interesting. They also want to recruit more hosts and set them up for success, which they already mentioned, to ensure that they have more high quality homes on the platform. And they also want to simplify the guest journey, which is where the product kind of comes in. So we spoke about earlier, they were investing a lot into their product. So I want to see how that continues to evolve. So they're trying to make it easier as well for their stay, not just from booking the trip, but in the experience as well whenever they do book the trip. And then finally, delivering world-class service, which is very nice because if they're able to deliver on this, I'm not sure how far their reach is going to go, but if they're able to get hosts to deliver this quality, it's only going to continue to improve for them. Whew. So take a breath from me. So that was 2020 Q4 report from Airbnb, the first ever they've had as a public company. So let me know what you thought about it. This company is disrupting the short-term rental of real estate, and they just recently went on the market, so they have a long way to go. I feel like everybody knows what Airbnb is. I'm a little bit nervous that they said their revenue is slowing down in terms of growth, but I do think that their experiences can change a lot in terms of value. So I think this is a value company for the long term, and I want to see how they continue to evolve the platform outside of just booking trips, but more about experiences that they bring, which they already mentioned for 2021. So let's see what Airbnb has to do in the long run.